Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back another video from 6. We got a what if scenario for Jujutsu Kaisen. What if Hakari was a Shibuya? So Hakari, yo, is a strong dude, but with these what ifs, it's never necessarily like right. They come in, they just it's like who do they encounter? What situation are they in at the time with Shibuya? What's happening in the Shibuya arc when they come in, etc. Blah blah blah. So I'm not gonna give like yo, the guy completely changes the game. We're just gonna get straight into. I can see a hair or something in front of my. Right. Anyway, yeah. Let's get into this.
Shibuya went wrong for the protagonist for a number of reasons,
Oh God, so many people, man. It was crazy.
and there are equally as many ways they could have turned things around. Yuta or Hakari's presence on the
Imagine if both of them. Like, whoa.
day of could drastically change things, and since I've already gone over Yuta, I want to discuss how Hakari could change the outcome of the Shibuya incident arc. I'm going to try and keep everyone involved as in character as possible, but undoubtedly I'm going to have to make some changes to multiple things in order to make Hakari fit here. So if there's a change I make that you disagree with, that's fine. It's based on my interpretation of these characters. Before we begin, be sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel.
Check out my Patreon page.
One thing I need to make clear before getting into anything Hakari would do in Shibuya is his standing, or how he's perceived by most of the adults and not the students. Gojo views Hakari pretty similarly to Yuta in terms of strength, but he also doesn't trust Hakari as much as he trusts Yuta. That's made very clear by him visiting Yuta before Shibuya and telling Yuta that it'd be up to him to look out for everyone if anything had ever happened to him.
Yeah.
He does mention here though that he doesn't think Yuta would have to look after Hakari because Hakari should be fine. This lines up with another statement made during Gojo vs Sukuna, where Hakari tells Yuta that Gojo doesn't want help unless he becomes weaker than the likes of Yuta or him. Gojo having this outlook on Hakari's power is a good thing in terms of the sorcerers and who they have on their team this time around, but his distrust in Hakari is definitely a negative for Hakari and not an advantage he'd have going into Shibuya that say someone like Yuta would have. Also, with Hakari being around Yuta's level of power in Gojo's opinion, he doesn't have access to Rika, which is important for multiple reasons. He obviously doesn't have access to any of Yuta's copied curse techniques, and he doesn't have access to essentially any fight he's in, being a 2v1. This makes Hakari a great addition to the team from a power perspective, but his perspective as a person and how other people view him is not good at all. Despite how we feel about Hakari and his gambling addiction and how cool he is, he's still the third-year student that got suspended for beating up an official.
Yeah.
With that being the case, it's not likely Hakari is going to be able to operate alone, even despite his absurdly large power level.
Yeah. It's gonna be like, right, someone needs to keep an eye on the guy because he's got such an explosive personality. Like, you know.
This is where things could be looked at as complicated. Shibuya had multiple teams, and Hakari is going to have to be placed into one of these teams. In the
This is what I was saying at the start. It's like what situation he is, who is he with, what's happening, blah blah blah. So yeah.
original story, there was a student in each group because most of them were expecting a promotion to grade 1. Panda, Yuji, Maki, Nobara, and Megami. Hakari's placement into one of these teams would be completely random, so I'm going to have to make the choice, and I'm going to have him go with Yuji. I'd expect things to progress similarly to how they did in the main timeline, having Yuji fight the grasshopper except with Hakari on his side this time, eventually meeting back up with Mei, and then obtaining the Mekamaru speaker telling him that Gojo had been sealed.
Yeah.
Yuji would obviously need to alert everyone that Gojo has been sealed and eventually meet up with Nanami, Megami, and Ino. While this is happening, it's important to mention that Mahito tells Kenjaku and the rest of the curses that curses and humans are evenly matched now in Shibuya. He's probably not too far off, since Kenjaku does agree with him in his assessment. Given that they were evenly matched in the main timeline, it's hard to imagine that throwing a powerhouse like Hakari in the mix would swing things heavily in the favor of the sorcerers. It is worth noting though that even though Kenjaku is on the curse's side, he is not included with the team of them with this statement. So this doesn't mean that Kenjaku would get mollywopped by Hakari, but we'll get to that battle when it comes. After meeting with Nanami and getting the news of all the curses in Shibuya and where Gojo is located, they realize the curtain needs to be lifted in order to get down to him, so Nanami will separate from Ino just like he did in the main timeline and leave Hakari, Yuji, and Megumi in Ino's care. Given that this team of sorcerers will be inevitably running into Awasaka and his crew, it's hard to imagine a scenario where Toji actually gets summoned in this timeline. Yuji and Megumi can deal with Awasaka the same way they did in the main story, while Hakari stays with Ino at the top to deal with the Seance Granny and her grandson. Given Hakari's extreme superiority to Ino, especially at this point in the story, there should be a no contest fight with Toji not coming out at all. With Ino not being brutalized by Toji, there's no reason for Megumi and Yuji to split up after their victory over Awasaka.
True, yeah, because Megumi's getting chased by Toji. And
Things should progress normally from here since everyone would be going into Shibuya as planned in this timeline. Since that is the case, when Yuji inevitably runs into Choso, there's no way Choso makes it out of this fight alive. This action definitely has major ramifications for later points in the story, but speaking in terms of Shibuya, this is a 100% net positive. Yuji losing to Choso and then being subsequently incapacitated is what led Sukuna to getting 15 fingers in Shibuya and
oh yeah, that's so true. Oh my freaking god,
wreaking the
does
massive
change a
amount
lot.
of havoc that he did. I'm sure I don't need to explain why Choso would lose to a group of Yuji, Hakari, Ino, and Megumi, but just to give Choso his respect, since he is one of my favorite characters in the franchise,
cool.
I'd like to discuss him versus Hakari and how I think that would go. I think it's fair to say that statistically, Choso and Yuji are fairly relative in speed, even in Choso's strongest form, that being Flowing Red Scale Stack. Given Hakari's
the blood manipulation thing is so cool. I love it.
Physical superiority to Yuji, as well as his razor-like cursed energy, I think it's safe to say that in the physicals department, he's got Choso pretty much covered. We do know that it's very in character for Hakari to summon his domain even when fighting people weaker than him due to his fight with Charles. That being said, I think he would use his domain on Choso, and given how Hakari is incredibly lucky and Choso's lack of or seeming lack of any anti-domain techniques, Hakari should be able to land a jackpot in less than 30 spins. While Choso is a
such a weird domain and everything.
blood manipulation user, and that's certainly going to be an issue, especially since his blood is like poison, Hakari should have dealt with a blood manipulation user before, since we know he participated in last year's Goodwill event where he should have met Noritoshi Kamo. While during his jackpot round, Hakari is immortal for 4 minutes and 11 seconds, one way to defeat or unalive a user of RCT is by using toxins or poison, which, as I just mentioned, Choso's blood happens to be. The thing with Hakari and his fully automatic reverse curse technique is that it can target poisons and expel them from Hakari's body so that he doesn't fall victim to them even after using RCT. After hitting a jackpot in the Choso fight, Hakari is definitely going to be amped up with his fever and wanted to be looking for more fights. With Mekamaru having told them how many curses were brought to Shibuya, I don't imagine Hakari would sit around waiting and would try to run into another one of these curses immediately. There are a couple different routes you could take here, but I'm going to try my best to steer the story in a way where Hakari has to fight each of the disaster curses one after another. The easiest way to do that, and since this curse is actively fighting at the moment, would be to have Hakari run into Dagon. Considering Yuji originally entered Shibuya train station at 10:10 p.m., assuming the chapters in this section are following a straight chronological order, and to clarify what I mean by that, I mean it's showing us events one after another in the order they happened and not a bunch of events that happened at the same time. Assuming that is true, Yuji's fight with Choso lasted less than 10 minutes because Dagon versus the other sorcerers starts to happen at 10:20 p.m. Given Choso would probably
I meant Hakari would be faster dealing with Choso. Right, okay, cool.
be faster than Yuji in dealing with Choso, and then factoring in he'd have to go to the other side of the train station to meet up with Maki, Naobito, and Nanami, I'm going to say that he could probably make it in about the same time, meaning he should be in the Dagon fight from the very beginning. I also don't think I'm taking Hakari too out of character here. It's been shown whenever he gets his fever, he wants to fight, and he's not one to follow the rules. Even though Nanami did leave Ino in charge of the three of them, that doesn't mean Hakari has to listen, and given how strong he is, it's not like any of the three could stop him from going wherever he wanted to. Given the time it's going to take for Hakari to get over to Dogon in the first place, it's not like he's going to still have Jackpot activated when he gets there. This means that there's need for another domain expansion to happen. This fight should go convincingly in the sorcerer's favor. Even without Hakari hitting a jackpot on Dogon, which I do think is likely, Dogon was getting beaten up by Naobito. In this situation, he would never be able to get off his domain expansion.
Yeah, so that's the guy that was doing the 25 frames thing, wasn't it? Yeah, he was.
Sure hit in order to immobilize Naobito and Nanami, because he'd be clashing with Hakari's domain expansion. When the two domains clash, Dogon is going to have to somehow ward off Naobito, Nanami, Hakari, who's doing his spins, and Maki all at the same time.
God damn.
Considering his struggle with handling just Naobito in the main story before summoning his domain expansion, and his inability to deal with the sorcerers immediately when his sure hit got disabled, I'm not thinking this is going to go in Dogon's favor at all. I do want to give Dogon his due credit here. It's shown in the Gojo vs Sukuna fight, as well as Sukuna vs Mahito, that sufficient damage to your body will cause you to drop your domain expansion. Even after being barraged by Toji, Dogon didn't drop his domain expansion. So
that's very true. He got absolutely annihilated by him. He was just all over the place. He's like sharpening those tools. He's stabbing him. He's throwing him around. And the domain doesn't weaken at all. Yeah. He like even snuck into the domain.
It seems as if he's pretty good at maintaining it and keeping it up. But that really...
Again, as well, though, it's constantly where him and the other guys just go to chill, innit? Like they chill in his domain all the time. So he, before he even becomes this, what's it called? The form that he's in now. He's in let's just say he's in the de-evolutionized form. He's constantly got the domain open, so he's very adept to keeping the domain open.
Goes to show the insane durability and endurance of the disaster curses.
Yeah.
Even though now we've been introduced to extremely strong sorcerers like Ryu, Uro, and Kashimo, who didn't exist in the story at this point, Dogon and the other disaster curses have absolutely insane durability that never really gets talked about. Jogo, despite his complete inferiority to Gojo, was able to take 4 enhanced blue strikes to the stomach without being exercised, and then a red on top of that. Hanami is said to be even more durable than Jogo, and it's not just a slight durability difference either. Gege tells us that 4 black flashes and a playful cloud strike from Todo would instantly exercise Jogo. And Hanami took those plus way more attacks and was still durable enough to be able to summon its domain expansion. Nanami even tells Yuji not to compare himself to Gojo if he's going to continue being a sorcerer, because Gojo can pull off what would be critical strikes for Nanami like they are just simple jabs. Even with that statement, Nanami uses a critical strike on Dogon and can't even break his skin. That means casual strikes from Jogo, like the blue enhanced punches, probably wouldn't do anything to Dogon either. Although Jogo is much stronger than Dogon, being stated to be on a complete other level, it's likely Dogon is just a bit more durable, similarly to how Hanami was. That being said, the sorcerers definitely still have a fight on their hands, but like I said, this should still go convincingly in their favor. Even with Dogon's enhanced durability, Naobito could still put damage on him, and Hakari is even stronger than him. And that's without mentioning that if Hakari is to land a jackpot, like I think he will, Dogon is absolutely finished. Immediately following Dogon's defeat, Jogo should show up the same way he did in the main story. Due to Hakari probably being in jackpot from Dogon's battle, I don't see this fight going in Jogo's favor either. In the main story, Jogo had the luxury of fighting all the sorcerers directly after the fight with Dogon, where they were all severely injured by Dogon's sure hit.
And he just goes bang, 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 gone.
In this timeline, that didn't happen, so Naobito should still be the second fastest sorcerer next to Gojo when he stacked his curse technique and using projection sorcery. He only lost this title whenever losing his arm, according to the narrator. That means Jogo is going to have to take out all 4 of them, including the immortal Hakari, who can continuously summon his domain so long as he keeps hitting jackpots. While Jogo is strong, stronger than Dogon for sure, sorcerer, like I mentioned earlier, I do think he's slightly less durable than him. That being said, I do think the sorcerer should also be able to put damage on him, granted they are able to hit him. Being honest though, I don't think Nanami and Maki are going to be too much help in this fight.
No.
Maki was barely weakened by Dagon's domain in the main story as it is.
Yeah, because we talked about Maki before she becomes OP Maki, aren't we? Like, so yeah, she's
Due to her not being hit by Dagon's sure hit the same way Naobito and Nanami were. Similarly, Nanami was dealt with by Jogo rather easily, just using a simple fire blast. While Nanami definitely was weakened like I mentioned earlier, it's not like he was weakened to the extent that Naobito was. I don't want to downplay losing an eye, but losing an arm is just much more significant. Hakari gives us a great example of how useful,
because your eye isn't something that you physically use to hurt somebody or defend against. You know, like boom, you lose that, you only got one of these. You lose an eye, all right, fine, half your peripheral's gone, but like, you still got these two things, haven't you?
An arm can be when it comes to losing that limb. When Kashimo uses an explosion at the end of his fight with Hakari in order to quote-unquote rip him to pieces, Hakari sacrifices his left arm in order for the rest of himself to live.
That's mad.
In other words, Hakari was able to survive a blast that would otherwise have ripped him to pieces just by sacrificing his arm.
Yeah.
But I do think the duo of Naobito and Hakari and Jackpot should be able to take Jogo down. From here, I can see this continuing two different ways. If Yuji continues on the path he originally went in the main story, he should eventually run into Mahito. This time he should have both Megumi and Ino with him. Assuming that Hakari had dealt with both Jogo and Dagon by that time, he could meet up with them before they fight Mahito, and they would all fight Mahito together. If Hakari didn't make it there in time, then it's possible both Megumi and Ino could perish fighting Mahito. There are a lot of different factors at work here that weren't in the original story that I had to deal with, so I'm going to have to make a lot of different decisions and assumptions just so I can keep this somewhat concise and controlled. That being said, I'm going to split this off into two different endings, the good ending and the bad ending. In the bad ending, there's absolutely no way that Megumi and Ino are still alive by the time Hakari gets there. It's even possible, due to the fact that Yuji didn't eat 15 more fingers, that he would be unalived by Mahito as well. Gojo does state during the Goodwill event that Yuji does grow in power whenever he eats the fingers. Not as much as Sukuna, obviously, but he does grow in power. Here, he'd be at 11 less fingers than he was in the original story. So it's pretty hard to say if he would still be at Mahito's level and Mahito wouldn't just beat him up. Although he can't transfigure his soul, Sukuna does make it clear he doesn't really care if Mahito beats on Yuji outside of that. Although Yuji didn't lose to Choso in this timeline and Nanami wasn't exploded right in front of his eyes, it's possible and likely, even given Mahito's nature, that he would still want to bring Nobara to him and unalive her right in front of Yuji, similarly to how he's done with Megumi and Ino at this point. I think losing 3 friends back to back like this would be enough to push Yuji to his breaking point again, where Mahito could land another Black Flash and continue to do an onslaught with him. There is a matter of if Sukuna would let Mahito actually unalive Megumi, but I don't think he really has a choice in this matter. When using his Enchained Binding Vow with Yuji, he's sworn not to harm anybody, so it's not like he can use that and then beat up Mahito. Other than that, he can't switch with Yuji whenever he just wants to because Yuji is like a cage for Sukuna, so I don't think Sukuna is going to come out. If Todo does show up, it's possible he could still give Yuji the pep talk that he did in the original timeline and get him to stand back up and continue fighting. This is extremely important because if Yuji's up and continues fighting when Hakari shows up, then Mahito is possible to take down. While Hakari is extremely powerful, as I've made clear multiple times throughout the video, he cannot, at least to our knowledge, perceive and hit the soul the same way Yuji can. That makes Yuji integral in this fight. There is an extremely important detail about Hakari's domain that makes it almost impossible for Mahito to reach his final form in this version of events. That being the fast activation of Hakari's domain in Sure Hit. Mahito in the original timeline was able to take out Todo's hand, hit another black flash, and figure out the true essence of his soul. In this timeline, if Mahito tries a similar move, which I think he probably would given the fact he'd probably get pretty desperate, Hakari could activate his domain and shield Todo from being touched due to the sure hits either canceling out, or Hakari sure hit outright winning, since it's a non-lethal sure hit and stronger in a domain tug of war. If this happens, Mahito's curse technique will be burnt out momentarily, and when that happens, Todo, Hakari, and Yuji can beat him without him being able to reinforce his soul, since he does that through maintaining his curse technique. If the sorcerers do end up exercising Mahito, that's a huge W, since Kenjaku won't be able to get control of him and take his curse technique.
Oh my god, yeah, he won't be able to absorb him.
In order to do necessary things for the culling games.
Yeah, oh my god, the culling games does the culling games even happen? Oh my god.
Assuming Kenjaku chooses to stay and fight, the sorcerers definitely are going to have a massive fight on their hands. Kenjaku has upwards of 10 million curses stored in his body at this point, and even despite the extremely powerful sorcerers on their side this time with Hakari, it's a big ask for someone to extinguish 10 million curses.
Yeah. That's huge. That is huge.
Kenjaku only used this
That's what she said. Ha.
amount when he was escaping though, so for the sake of argument, we won't say he does something like this in character whenever he's fighting somebody. That being the case, the sorcerers actually have a pretty good chance of beating Kenjaku if they're able to fight him for long enough for Yuki to show up. The combination of both Yuki and Hakari fighting Kenjaku might be able to take him down this time. Yuki, with minimal help from Tengen, was almost able to take down Kenjaku while fighting alongside Choso. Choso, who is massively weaker than Hakari, and on top of that, not immortal like he is. With Yuki there to deal with curse spirit manipulation as well as Hakari's immortality, I do think that they have a good chance of winning and actually saving Gojo this time around. However, this is still the bad timeline considering Maki, Megumi, Nanami, and Ino's demise. Rewinding things for a minute, in the good timeline,
Megumi being gone as well, that changes everything as well for like security, like wow.
Hakari is able to get to Megumi, Yuji, and Ino before they engage Mahito and save both Megumi and Ino's lives. Now Obito will also be there this time around, and all they really have to do is play keep away from Mahito so that he can't touch anybody's soul and transfigure them. Maybe letting Yuji land a couple hits here and there just to weaken Mahito is fine, but they don't even have to do this forever. Once Todo shows up, things are going to become a lot easier for the sorcerers. Instead of just two people switching places, Mahito is going to have to deal with potentially 6 different sorcerers and Megumi Shikigami all switching places, not knowing which one is going to do soul damage to him. The same thing happens here as in the bad timeline, where if Mahito tries a desperate domain expansion, Hakari can simply cancel it out with his own domain expansion, leaving him vulnerable and able to be beaten since he can't maintain the shape of his soul without his curse technique. Then, the same way they did in the bad timeline, things go the way they should for the sorcerers in this timeline, except with Megumi and Ino surviving this time. You could also potentially say, if you want to, that both Maki and Nanami survived the fight with Jogo since Hakari was there to protect them, but I'll leave that up for you to decide. Overall, Hakari being in Shibuya is definitely a net positive for the sorcerers and has better ramifications for the rest of the story than him just not being there. If there's any character you don't think I gave enough attention to, or something you thought I breezed over that you think may be a
nothing I can think of off the top of my head. I reckon after I finish this video, I'd have a couple of things. But
bit more of a difficult challenge for Hakari or the other sorcerers involved, be sure to leave a comment and let me know. There were tons of factors to consider in a million different ways a lot of this.
I mean, even took in the times that things happened, and it's cool.
Stuff could go. This is just the way I chose to take it because of the way that I interpret these characters.
Bam, love it. That's cool. And he says he's going to be uploading a lot more this month, so that's fun. I need more JJK. Well, I don't need it, but I love it. I enjoy it. It's cool. And I'm waiting for chapter 253. I still haven't read it. I want to know what happens next. Oh my god. But yeah, that was fun. And thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, I want to be able to watch patron-only reaction videos, such as solo leveling every week and the original Dragon Ball series. Link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is the highest spell challenge. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. See you guys, next time.